Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Gaura Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All together. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Agyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militanjena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai. So welcome everyone to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class on the auspicious occasion of Ekadasi and also the first day of our Julan Yatra, which will continue for the next, I think, 4 days. It's very ecstatic kirtan and swinging Radha Govinda this morning. I'm sure you all agree. So it just so happens, by Krishna's grace, that the verses today are all about the importance of speaking about Krishna's pastimes. And so it seems that Krishna wants us to talk about his pastimes. So we'll read through the verses. We'll focus on text 36, so that's 3:6:36, the verse in purport, and then I'll try to speak a little bit about Julan Yatra, Radha and Krishna's Swing Festival. So we're starting, our section today is 3:6:35 to, I think, 40 is the last verse of the chapter. And first we'll read the translations, and then we'll go back to text 36. So, text 35, translation. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. O Vidura, who can estimate or measure the transcendental time, work, and potency of the gigantic form manifested by the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So, Maitreya has just explained to Vidura all about the universal form. So after describing it, and after also narrating the demigod's prayers to the Lord, then now Maitreya is saying, who can describe it? All these things are inconceivable. Then he says, in spite of my inability, whatever I've been able to hear from my spiritual master, and whatever I could assimilate, I am now describing in glorification of the Lord by pure speech, for otherwise my power of speaking would remain unchaste. Text 37. The highest perfectional gain of humanity is to engage in discussions of the activities and glories of the pious actor. Such activities are so nicely arranged in writing by the greatly learned sages that the actual purpose of the ear is served just by being near them. O my son, the original poet Brahma, after mature meditation for 1,000 celestial years, could know only that the glories of the Supreme Soul are inconceivable. The wonderful potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is bewildering even to the jugglers. The potential power is unknown even to the self-sufficient Lord. So it is certainly unknown to others. Even the Lord doesn't know his own glories. Words, mind, and ego, with their respective controlling demigods, have failed to achieve success in knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, we simply have to offer our respectful obeisances unto him as a matter of sanity. In other words, we'd be insane not to. So, that's the last verse of this chapter. Let's go back to text 36. And please repeat. Tatapi kirtayam yanga yata mati yata shutam kirtim hare swam satkartum Giram anya bidhasatim. Tatapi kirtayam yanga. Yata mati yata shutam. Kirtim hare swam satkartum. Giram anya bidhasatim. Please chant. One more. All right, so word for word translations all together. Tata, therefore, api, although it is so, kirtayami, I do describe, anga, o vidura, yata, as much as, mati, intelligence, yata, as much as, shutam, heard, kirtim, glories, hare, of the Lord, swam, on, satkartum, just purify, giram, speeches, anya bida, otherwise, asatim, unchaste. So translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. In spite of my inability, whatever I've been able to hear from the spiritual master, and whatever I could assimilate, I am now describing in glorification of the Lord by pure speech, for otherwise my power of speaking would remain unchaste. Purport. By purification of the conditioned soul, the purification of the conditioned soul necessitates purification of his consciousness. By the presence of consciousness, the presence of the transcendental soul is verified. And as soon as consciousness leaves the body, the material body is not active. Consciousness is perceived, therefore, by activities. The theory put forward by empiric philosophers that consciousness can remain in an inactive state is the proof of their poor fund of knowledge. One should not become unchaste by stopping the activities of pure consciousness. If the activities of pure consciousness are stopped, certainly the conscious living force will be otherwise engaged, because unless engaged, the consciousness has no standing. Consciousness cannot be silent, even for a moment. When the body does not act, the consciousness acts in the form of dreams. Unconsciousness is artificial. By induced extraneous help, it remains for a limited period, but when the intoxication of the drug is finished, or when one is awake, the consciousness again acts earnestly. Maitreya's statement is that in order to avoid unchaste conscious activities, he was trying to describe the unlimited glories of the Lord, although he did not have the ability to describe them perfectly. This glorification of the Lord is not a product of research, but the result of hearing submissively from the authority of the spiritual master. It is also not possible to repeat all that one has heard from his spiritual master, but one can narrate as far as possible by one's honest endeavor. It does not matter whether the Lord's glories are fully explained or not. One must attempt to engage one's bodily, mental, and verbal activities in the transcendental glorification of the Lord. Otherwise, such activities will remain unchaste and impure. The existence of the conditioned soul can be purified only by the method of engaging mind and speech in the service of the Lord. The Tridandi Sannyasi of the Vaishnav school accepts 3 rods, representing the vow to engage in the service of the Lord with body, mind, and speech, whereas the Ekadandi Sannyasi takes the vow to become one with the Supreme. Since the Lord is the Absolute, there is no distinction between him and his glories. The glories of the Lord, as chanted by the Vaishnav sannyasi, are as substantial as the Lord himself. And thus, while glorifying the Lord, the devotee becomes one with him in transcendental interest, although he remains eternally a transcendental servitor. This simultaneously one and different position of the devotee makes him eternally purified, and thus his life becomes a complete success. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So here we're hearing Maitreya, he's saying, yes, I'm not capable of describing the glories of the Lord. In fact, nobody's capable of describing the glories of the Lord because nobody can fully know them. Even the Lord himself doesn't know them. But in spite of my incapability, I'm going to try, because what else can I do? I'm a servant of Krishna. As a servant of Krishna, that's what I do. That's the manifestation of the consciousness of a servant of Krishna, is that they want to talk about Krishna. And Prabhupada's saying here that this is the proper use of consciousness, that consciousness can't be inactive. So if we're not talking about Krishna, if we're not using our body, mind, and activities in the service of the Lord, the glorification of the Lord, then we're going to use them in the service of something else, right? And it's usually not going to be of good consequence, for ourselves or for others. So as a matter of sanity, as he says, we have to understand that, we are the eternal servants of Krishna, and our duty, if we're sane, we need to understand that our duty is to serve the Lord, and the faculty of speech is engaged in the service of the Lord by chanting the glories of the Lord, either by chanting his names in kirtan, in japa, or describing the pastimes of the Lord, or in explaining the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, sharing our realizations, sharing our feelings that we experience in Krishna consciousness with each other, and in that way inspiring each other. And that's the goal of sadhu sangha. And that's why we get together, to associate with each other, is to nourish each other and inspire each other in our progressive devotional service to Krishna. So, in this same vein, I will attempt, although I am incapable, but I'll attempt to describe something about Radha and Krishna's transcendental swing pastime. So this is called Julan Yatra. Jula means swing, and Yatra means the activity or the engagement. So this is their, Julan Yatra literally means the swing pastime. And this pastime takes place during the rainy season. It takes place during the monsoon. So I lived in Sri Dham Mayapur. I had the good fortune of living in the Holy Dham, Mayapur, for 9 years. And they celebrate Julan Yatra. Has anybody here been to Julan Yatra in Mayapur? Raise your hand, please. Nobody? Well, one time you got to go, because they do a big thing. They do it outdoors, and they have this area that's near the Goshala that's very it's very woodsy. There's a pond there, and it's surrounded by trees, big kadamba trees and flowering bushes and things. And then they put lights. I saw in Kalachandji's park here that there are some lights wrapped around the trees. I guess that's for festivals. So they do that. They wrap lights around the trees. From the branches they have ornaments hanging, and like flower decoration, these flower balls. And it's beautiful. The music, they have the Shanai playing, this classical Indian Shanai playing at the welcome when you walk in. And then there's this path that's like bricks. They lay the bricks there. So you're walking along this raised path, because otherwise it's muddy, because it's rainy season. It's always raining. And so when you go to Julan Yatra in Mayapur, you have to take your umbrella, because more than likely it's going to rain. But that's part of the charm. And when we hear the description of the actual Julan, the swing pastime that happens in Vrindavan, when Krishna was personally present with Srimati Radharani and the gopis, it's often raining during that pastime. So the rain, because it's very nice, because it's right after the summer season. So there's this summer season in Vrindavan, which is intense. It's like what we've been experiencing here for the past few weeks, right? Of this just like 110-degree weather every day, day after day, relentless sun, no clouds, no hope of rain. And in Vrindavan, it's like that. Same thing, only hotter. It's like really like an oven. And so everybody's just been, enduring the scorching summer season. So when the rainy season comes, it's like celebration, it's like, woohoo, let's get out in the rain. It's nice. So, and this pastime happens towards the end of the rainy season. Rainy season in Vrindavan, it rains almost every day, and sometimes it'll just rain all day. But at least it'll rain a little bit every day. And sometimes it's heavy thunderstorms. Sometimes it's just this like mist that's wafting in the breeze. So like that, in Vrindavan it's the same thing. So it's described in, there's a book called Sri Krishna Bhavanamrita, where this pastime is described really beautifully there. And it says that so that the rainy season is, so the rainy season's been going on for some time. So now the earth has had a chance to soak in the rain and be rejuvenated. So everything's green and lush, and the animals are happy. Because, I was thinking, just like the other day, I was thinking, well, we humans are okay because we can go inside and there's AC and it's pleasant. But what about the animals? Like we have this cat in our front yard, this black cat. Imagine wearing a black fur coat in this weather, How are the animals even surviving? So same thing in Vrindavan, the animals are outside, and so when the rain comes, the animals also become happy. They come out of their, holes in the ground, and the frogs come out of wherever they're hiding, and the frogs are croaking, and the birds are singing, and the animals are like frolicking in the forest, and it's just happy. The flowers are all blooming, there's new growth on the trees, everything, the grass has become bright green again, there's plenty of grass for the cows to eat. So it's a wonderful atmosphere. So it's described that the thunder, it rumbles, it's like mridanga. So there's the rumbling of the thunder like the mridanga. And when the peacocks hear that thunder, then they become happy. And they start dancing. And the frogs are croaking, doing their kirtan. So there's mridanga. The birds are singing. So there's this whole forest kirtan going on between the thunder, and the rain is making pitter-pattering on the leaves of the trees, like some of the big leaves, when it hits, it's like pitter-patter, just like falling on a tin roof or something. So there's beautiful sounds. And the breeze is blowing this rainy mist, and it's also blowing the aroma of the flowers, the kadamba flowers and malati flowers, and all these nice flowers that bloom during the rainy season are very fragrant. And it's almost like they've just been holding back. During the dry season, they've just been holding it all in. And now that they can finally let out the aroma, it's like all of their devotion for Krishna is coming out in the form of the fragrance of these flowers. And the wind is blowing the mist, and the mist is picking up the fragrance of the flowers, and it's bringing it right to this grove of kadamba trees where Radha and Krishna are having their swing pastime. So the swing, it's a large swing, and it's tied with golden ropes to the branches of two big kadamba trees. So kadamba trees are, it's a large tree, and big spreading branches, and kadamba flowers are it's a very amazing flower because it's like a ball. It's like a little ball, like a tennis ball or a golf ball. What's that? On the painting? Oh yeah, that looks like a kadamba tree. Yeah, little balls. And then on the ball, there's like these little flowers that are poking out all over from the ball. And each one of those flowers they're tiny little flowers, but they're so loaded with fragrance. So you can just, if you walk under a kadamba tree when it's in bloom, it's just like, it's like, it makes your head spin. So even now, in Kali Yuga. So what to speak of then, in Krishna's pastimes, when the flowers are just, the trees are just like sending out their fragrance. Like that's their offering to Krishna. And the trees in Vrindavan are all pure devotees. So they really want to please Krishna by that. So the swing is there, and it's decorated, just like our swing is beautifully decorated with flowers, and the seat is covered with a cushion and a soft, beautiful silk cloth. So Radha and Krishna are there, and they're surrounded by the gopis, the Sakhis, who are the older gopis, so like Radharani's age. They're her close friends. And then there are also the younger girls, who are called manjaris, and they're like the age of Raseshwari. They're little girls. And so there's a lot of them, and they're always very eager. They have a lot of love for Srimati Radharani, and they always want to do anything they can to help make her pastimes with Krishna a success, so that she's really happy. So all of these girls are there, different ages of girls, and they're just looking at the swing. So Krishna, there's a lot of swings. Actually, there's not just one swing, there's many swings, hanging from many different branches of many kadamba trees. So Krishna sees the swing, and he's like, oh, there's a swing there. And he's just looking at all the different swings and sizing them up. And then he sees like one that's really particularly attractive. It's you know, there are like flowers wound all up the rope, and there are there's a flag on it, because when the swing goes back and forth, then the flag is going to be changing directions, right, with the movement of the air. So he likes that one. So he sits down on that one. And then he looks at Srimati Radharani. She's standing there, and he just takes her by the hand, and he pulls her onto the swing. She doesn't have a choice. Because Radharani's shy. You know, she wouldn't, on her own, she wouldn't just be like, all right, I'm going to sit next to Krishna. You know, she's standing there. Like, just like when a lot of you were swinging the swing this morning, you could see that a lot of you were like kind of shy, just standing there like, oh my God, am I going to swing? Am I going to swing? And then you needed a little bit of a nudge, like, take that chain, you know, swing, we need to get this thing going. So in the same way, you know, Radharani and the gopis, they're a little shy, so they're standing there. And then Krishna, he takes her hand and he pulls her. So the swing is a little different than this swing, because this swing is, the seat is long this way, and Radha and Krishna are facing forward. But the swing that's described in Krishna Bhavanamrita it's long this way. And so Krishna sits on this end, and Radharani, he pulls Radharani into this end, and they're facing each other. Okay? So it's kind of like, when I was reading the pastime, I was remembering, you know, at the fair, they have some, you go to like one of these fairs with lots of rides. Sometimes there's a ride that's like a big boat, and it goes up, and then it goes, like, it's like this, right? And there's a lot of people sitting on this end, facing this way, and people sitting on that end, facing that way. They're facing each other. So when the swing goes up, the people on this end are up, and the people on this end are down, right? And then everybody screams, and then it goes up again, and the people here are up, and the people here are down. You're all seeing this? Yes. Okay. So that's how it is with Radha and Krishna's swing. So Radha and Krishna are facing each other, and then you know, the Sakis are there, they're fanning, they're throwing flowers, they're showering them with flowers. They also shower them with this flower pollen. They have different kinds of flowers have different colors of pollen. Like some is like yellow, some is red, some is orange. And so they're showering them with flower petals, and they're also showering them with these dusts of pollen. So it's like poof, you know, and the wind is blowing the pollen, and it's mixing with the mist, and the pollen itself is very fragrant. The flower petals are also fragrant, so it's just like dousing them with like colors. So that the flower pollen, it's kind of like holy festival. Actually, that's what they use in the original holy festivals. They use flower pollen, and so you know, I guess no one in those days had asthma or allergies. Yeah, the flower pollen in the air is like dusting, and it's like poof. So. So they start, the girls start pushing them, and as they're pushing, then of course they're singing, they're doing kirtan. So kirtan is going on. They're playing different instruments, and then there's also all those sounds that I described before: the thunder in the background rumbling. The birds are singing. The bees. Oh, the bees. So the bees, they're after the flowers in Krishna's garland and Radharani's garland. There are also garlands of flowers, like strings of flowers hanging from the kadamba trees. So when the swing goes back and forth, they swing it quite forcefully. And you'll see it's going to get swung very high. But even like Radha and Krishna, they like to swing like, at least Krishna, he's a guy, right? So he likes things to be like forceful. So while they're swinging it, the branches of the trees are moving. And because the ropes are tied to the branches, so that the force of the swing is making those branches that the swing is tied to move. So when the branches are moving, then the garlands, and there are also decorations like lamps, little hanging lamps from the trees, those are also moving. So it's creating this effect, you know, with the swinging lamps and the swinging garlands. And the bees are trying to get the garlands on the trees. They're trying to get Krishna's garland, but they can't because it's moving too fast. So the bees are getting annoyed, and they're just like, they're buzzing, they're going back and forth, chasing it. So you imagine these swarms of bees, and they're going back and forth, and they're swarming around Krishna, and they're getting frustrated, and they're buzzing louder. And that's getting the birds going, so the birds are singing more loudly. And so there's like this tumult, you know, of kirtan, and then the sounds of nature and the animals and birds. And also the tinkling of the ankle bells of the gopis as they're swinging, and the ching, ching, ching of the bangles of the gopis as they're pushing. Just wait the questions later, okay? Otherwise I'll lose my momentum here, lose my meditation. So this is going on. And also as the swing is going back and forth, because no one wants to lose sight of Radha and Krishna. So the manjaris, they're pushing. Some of them are in the front pushing them back, and some are in the back pushing them forward, and some are just running back and forth because they just want to stay. So they're in the front, they see them, they're running back with them and running forward with them. Just like, you know, sometimes in kirtan, often in kirtan, we'll do like a backward and forward dancing, and sometimes we'll be running forward and jumping and running backward and jumping. So it's like that. They're doing that. This is a thing, a dance that goes on in the spiritual world during the swing festival, is that all the girls run forward and jump back, like that, with the swing, so that they're just with Radha and Krishna the whole time. So, yeah. And see. Okay, so then when the swing, so the swing's going up, and when the swing is up here, then let's say Radharani's on this side and Krishna's on this side. So when Radharani is up and Krishna is down, then Radharani's pearl necklace, it's kind of hanging down, and it's bumping against Krishna's chest. And that makes Krishna very happy. And then when it goes up like this, then Krishna's garlands are hanging down, and they're brushing against Radharani's blouse. And you can imagine, see, like Kalachandji's wearing this beautiful Tulsi garland. So just imagine he's on the swing, Radharani's here, that Tulsi garland is hanging down against Radharani's blouse, and it's bumping against her chin and going beneath her nose, and she's smelling the fragrance of Krishna's garland. And the fragrance of Krishna's garland, it's not just the flowers, it's the fragrance of Krishna's body, because it's been like next to him, you know? So it's kind of like his bodily aroma has, you know, also diffused into the garland. So when that comes against her chest and against her nose, and she's like swooning, you know? And then, so she's in this state of ecstatic love, you know, that's just been enhanced now by coming in contact with Krishna's garland. And the same thing when her garland and her pearl necklace touches his chest, and he also, wow, their love for each other becomes very enhanced. So then they're going up again. Now Radharani's up here again, Krishna's up here. And now she's so just moved, you know, by love. She's so overwhelmed with emotion for Krishna. But then now they're going, okay, so they get going so high that actually the Radharani's back is touching the tree branches. They're going really, really high. And the kirtan's getting faster. The kirtan's getting louder, and it's getting more intense. And the girls who are swinging are getting more hyped up, you know, because when they see that how Radha and Krishna's love for each other is becoming increasing and increasing, then their ecstasy also increases. Because that's one of the qualities of that we're all parts and parcels of Krishna. So when Radha and Krishna are happy, we also feel happy because we're parts of Krishna. So when the whole is happy, the parts are also happy. So the same thing, that when Radha and Krishna are happy, the gopis are happy. When their love for each other increases, then the gopis' love for both of them also increases. So their ecstasy is also increasing, and they're pushing more and singing louder and dancing stronger and like that. So the swing is going very high. And then it's going so high that the wind when you go down, there's like a wind that's created by the movement of the swing. So Radharani's up here, and she's thinking that the wind is so strong now that I'm afraid that when it goes down, my skirt's going to blow up. It's gonna go whoosh, and that's going to be very embarrassing. So she lets go of the ropes, and she tries to hold her skirt down so the wind doesn't blow it. And then at that point, of course, because of gravity, she's like horizontal, like up in the air. Then she slides on the swing. She's not holding on anymore, and she slides right into Krishna. And so she's like basically on Krishna's lap at this point. And then what does Krishna do? What do you think he does? He embraces her. So now you have and what does that mean? It means now he's not holding on either. So so two of them are just on the swing way up there in the sky, going very fast, and they're just embracing each other, and they're just like totally immersed in their love for each other. Nobody's thinking, wait a minute, we have to hold on or we're going to be in trouble. So all of a sudden, the gopis who are swinging, they notice that. And they're like, uh-oh, they're going to fall off. That's not going to be good. So then they slow down the swing, and they bring it to a stop. And then, the swing stopped now. And Radharani gets off the swing, because that was like kind of a scary moment. It was an intense moment. She wasn't expecting that. She wasn't expecting that she was going to be in Krishna's arms like that, and it became like very intense. She's like, all right, that was too intense. I got to get off it. This is like too much. So she gets off the swing. And then she sees, and Lalita's there, Radharani's best friend. She's an older gopi. She's a little bit older than Srimati Radharani, but she is very intimate, a very intimate friend. So she's like, all right, Lalita, your turn. And she pushes Lalita onto the swing with Krishna. And they immediately, before she can object, Radharani herself starts pushing the swing. And then the other girls join in pushing, and the same thing, it gets really high and like that. So, and at that time, actually, Krishna expands himself. So we see there in the picture that Krishna, when the Rasa Lila, when the dance is going on, Rasa dance, then Krishna initially starts off dancing only with Radharani, who's the chief gopi. But as the dance goes on and everyone's becoming more and more ecstatic, then Krishna expands himself to dance with each and every gopi. And he does it in such a way that each gopi is thinking that Krishna is only dancing with me. Wow, And they all feel so special and so valued and so loved. And Krishna's looking at them in such a way that they're just totally absorbed in Krishna's beautiful lotus face and his beautiful loving smile and his glittering brown eyes and his cheeks, and they're just totally absorbed in his beautiful face while dancing with him, that they don't even, everything else, the whole rest of the world just falls away, and they think Krishna's only with me. They're just in the moment. So the same thing happens with the swing pastime, that I was saying that there are all those other swings. So by Krishna's internal potency, by his transcendental Leela Shakti, then he manifests himself on all of those swings with all of the Sakis. So now they're all swinging with Krishna. All of Radharani's friends, the older girls who are Radharani's age, each one of them is on a different swing with Krishna. And they're all thinking that Krishna's only swinging with me. And Krishna's looking at them. It's the same thing. They're facing Krishna, and similar things are happening as what happened with Radharani. And so that they're all there with Krishna, and it's a very ecstatic moment. So that goes on for a while. Then they all get off those swings, and they all kind of join together. And then Vrinda Devi's there. So she sees them all together, and they're all just blissed out from swinging with Krishna, and Krishna's blissed out from swinging with all the gopis. And then Vrinda Devi says, hey, look over here. And then there's another swing. So then there's this giant swing, and it's shaped like a lotus flower. So lotus flower, there's like the whorl, there's like the center of the lotus, and then there are all these petals. There's like the internal petals and then the outer petals. So the swing is like that. So then she invites Radha and Krishna to get on the swing. So Radha and Krishna get on the swing, and they sit in the middle. where the whorl, the round part in the middle of the flower. And then the 8 principal Sakis, they get on the 8 petals surrounding that middle. And then the other Sakis get on the outer petals. So now they're all on one swing. And then they start swinging on that swing. So like that, this is kind of like it's a little bit of a pattern with Krishna's pastimes, that it'll first start out like only Radha and Krishna, and then it'll be Krishna with all the gopis simultaneously, but separately, and then it'll be Krishna with all the gopis simultaneously and together, unified. Like it's not just me and Krishna, it's all of us with Krishna, and like that. So the swing pastime is, we can meditate on this description by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Sri Krishna Bhavanamrita, when we're swinging, and just imagine, you know, all the feelings that are being shared and the love that's being exchanged, and you know, how this is bringing so much ecstasy to everyone present, how everyone's able to take part, even the trees and the birds and the bees and the animals are all able to take part in accentuating the happiness of Radha and Krishna, and by that they themselves feel perfect, complete happiness. And so just like, you know, when we swing Radha and Krishna in Julan Yatra, we feel happiness, no? It's like you're swinging and you don't want to let go, you just want to stay there, having your moment with Radha and Krishna. But then after you've swung Krishna, then the kirtan's going and you're just happy that everyone else is swinging. And so it's kind of like that, right? It's like first there's Radha and Krishna, and then there's someone else swinging Radha and Krishna. Then there's me swinging Radha and Krishna, and it's only me swinging Radha. Like, you know, you can see the devotees while they're swinging. It's like there's nothing else. It's just me here swinging Radha Govinda, right? And then, but then you turn around and it's like, oh, all the devotees are here and they're also swinging Radha and Krishna, and it's a whole thing, you know. It's like, so we can also experience a little bit, you know, of the similar dynamic in this pastime, and try to be conscious of that. So, you know, by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we've been given this little glimpse into the spiritual world. If it wasn't for Srila Prabhupada, we wouldn't know anything about anything, you know. We wouldn't know anything about Krishna, what to speak of Srimati Radharani, what to speak of what they do, the eternal pastimes in the spiritual world. But Krishna came to this world 5,000 years ago to perform his pastimes for us, for the purpose of attracting our minds to these pastimes. So it's really nice to hear about them and talk about them and get into detail and be attracted, because we are meant to participate in these pastimes. And that's why Prabhupada established festivals like Julan Yatra, to give us a little taste of what it's like to participate in these pastimes and think, wow, I wish this moment could go on forever. You know, when you're swinging Radha and Krishna, you're showering flowers on them and dancing for their pleasure. It's like, I wish this could just go on forever. And it can. That's what we're supposed to feel. We're supposed to feel like, I wish I could just do this and nothing else, you know? And when our desire to do that and nothing else becomes so strong, then we can actually enter into the pastime, and we can. That's when we're that pure, then we become qualified to enter, to go back to Goloka Vrindavan, because these are not just Radha and Krishna's pastimes with the Sakis and the Manjari. These are also our eternal pastimes. You know, we all have an eternal place in those pastimes, and we have a role in those pastimes, right? Like, so we see that the gopis here, they play different roles. Some are fanning, some are showering flowers, some are pushing the swing, some are playing musical instruments, some are singing kirtan, some are collecting things, you know, to be used in the pastimes. Also, there are some that have, like, you know, whole trays full of snacks and nice nectar drinks that when they get off the swing, they offer those things. And so there's so many different services to be done. And not only, we're not just there as, you know, passive observers. Radha Krishna Leela, it's not a spectator sport. I mean, it can be if that's all you want to do, but it's it's participatory. So we we have a role. We have a role in those pastimes, whether we're the one throwing flowers, or we're pushing the swing, or pulling the swing, or singing. We all play a part in those pastimes together with other, eternal associates who are our friends in the spiritual world, who take part in those pastimes. So hearing these is meant to create, to nourish the desire to return and back to those pastimes. And that's why it pleases Krishna so much. Actually, just hearing and speaking these pastimes is very pleasing to Krishna, because he's seeing this, like Radha Kalachand is right there. They're seeing that we're talking about this pastime. They're seeing that we're enacting this pastime. And they're like, this is so good that they're talking about this, that they're hearing about this, because now they're going to want to come back. And they want us to come back. That's what they want. They want us to come back more than we even want to go. So we just need to go on hearing and go on meditating on these pastimes that Srila Prabhupada has so mercifully revealed to us, and the Acharyas have given so many details. And one fine day, we'll attain the purity, we'll have that greed, the intense eagerness to enter into the pastimes. And one day we will find ourselves there by the mercy of the Guru and the disciplic succession and the Lord. So I will stop there. And Esther had a question way back, and then there's a couple of questions over here. Yes, please. Oh, there is a mic.
I was just gonna ask if there were butterflies, because there's a butterfly on the...
Oh yeah, of course there were butterflies. So there was a lot of movement. You can just see like the movement going on. Everything's moving. The tree branches are moving, the garlands are swinging, the lamps are swinging, the bees are flying back and forth, the dancing is going on, Radha and Krishna are swinging, the butterflies are flapping there, the birds are flying around. It's like a swirl, It's like being in one of those, those little things that you get that you shake them up and the snowflakes start flying. It's like that. It's like being inside one of those. Go ahead, Jai Hari.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the wonderful pastime. Okay, so when you were saying that Krishna expanded himself, like in the rasa dance,
yeah.
Was the swing pastime the beginning of the rasa dance, or was it just that he expanded like the rasa dance?
It's a different pastime. So the swing pastime happens in the daytime. It happens around like midday. Rasa dance happens at night. So, but there's many, we hear about how Krishna expands himself in the Rasa Lila. We hear about how he expands himself to be in Dwarka, to be with his 16,108 queens. Krishna expands himself a lot. It's like a regular thing. He does it in many different scenarios. So this, what's that? Yeah. So the pastimes that we hear in Bhagavatam 10th canto, that's like a sampling. There are so many pastimes, and there's so many more details. But time was limited. Maharaj Pariksha only had 7 days. And by the time, there was so much philosophy, and other pastimes spoken first. By the time they got to, Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes, that was practically probably like the 7th day, or at least the 6.5 day, So the clock was ticking, and he could only give so much. But there's so many more pastimes of Krishna that the Goswamis and the Acharyas reveal to us. And the interesting thing, I was thinking that, as I was reading that this morning from Sri Krishna Bhavanamrita, I was thinking, how does he even know this? How does Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur even know this? Because it's not in the Bhagavatam, it's not in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But then, I researched it, and all of our Acharyas, they have they're also eternal associates in Radha and Krishna's Leela. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he happens to be a Manjari. His name is Vinod Manjari. So he knows because he's there. he's there, He takes part in. He's one of the little girls pushing the swing or throwing the flower pollen. He knows it. That's his path. So he's telling us about it. So that's how fortunate we are, that these eternal associates of Krishna that are with Radha and Krishna in the spiritual world, they came to this world to tell us what's going on there, to describe it in detail. And they put it in writing, We can read these things. Srila Prabhupada also was there, when he tells us about Krishna, when he talks about Krishna and Balaram, he was there, he knows what they're doing because that's his pastime. So we can have a lot of faith, and I mean, just, it's like inconceivable how fortunate we are that we can just read a book that was written by somebody from the spiritual world who's personally describing what they see when they're there. You know, it's like, why would you want to read anything else? You know, that's why in the beginning of the Bhagavatam it says, Kim va para ishvara, what is the need for any other scripture? Like, why would you read the newspaper or some mundane literature? You know, this is just like place of pilgrimage for crows. It's just like garbage, you know, compared to these literatures that are coming from the spiritual world, given to us by Krishna, Radha and Krishna's eternal associates. It's like, just immerse yourself in these literatures. Thank you.
Jai.
Something else? Did you have your hand? Anything else? Yes. Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu.
A little bit more of chastity in terms of repeating how important it is to hear from the spiritual master properly and then to repeat that. Because there's a lot of different things that we can hear about, but when we listen to Prabhupada's lectures and listen to Prabhupada's initiation lectures and listen to his arrival addresses and listen to his conversations, listen to his Chaitanya Charitamrita classes, he says a lot, and he, made sure that we understood that, like for instance, saying prayers, he wanted us to pray to the Lord, but he also wanted us to repeat the prayers of the previous acharyas.
Yeah.
So, because they're guaranteed, there's those persons who are there. So when we repeat what they've said, it's so powerful, it's so pure, that it's, even though if we don't understand it, we still should do it. Like we heard the pastime of the day of the elephant. In his previous life, he learned some beautiful mantras, some prayers. And then when he was being attacked and fighting for 1,000 years, the crocodile all of a sudden, poof, those mantras came back. So just wanted to say that, it's very important to remain chaste to the parampara and to Prabhupada, how he described it, because we're dependent on him. He's the resident of Vrindavan, like he said during the Nectar of Instruction. It says we should worship a resident of Vrindavan.
Exactly.
And the devotees asked him, what should we do, Srila Prabhupada? Who should we worship? He said, I'm that resident of Vrindavan. You should worship. So anyway, thank you for the beautiful class and that beautiful pastime. That was so sweet. Amazing pastimes.
Yeah, and as a resident of Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada also pointed out other residents of Vrindavan. In other words, he pointed out other bona fide sources for hearing about these pastimes. Because there's a lot out there about Radha and Krishna, on the internet, or if you go to India, there's a lot of people that will tell you a lot of stories, and they're not all actually bona fide, There's some stuff there that is not helpful to read, that can cause confusion or just like wrong understanding of or wrong mood, So, Srila Prabhupada, he gave us so much himself personally. And he also indicated books that are good to read, or, devotees who are bona fide sources of information about these things. So we have to be careful also about our sources when we're trying to learn more about Krishna Lila or Chaitanya Lila, but especially Radha Krishna Lila, because there's so much about it. So, the person has to be in disciplic succession. They should be in our disciplic succession, ideally. So, like the book that I was referring to is by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he's an acharya that Srila Prabhupada quoted a lot, and he's also in the Brahmamadhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, our Sampradaya. So we have to make sure like that. There's another book, Govinda Lilamrita, that was written by Krishnadas Kaviraj, who's also in our Sampradaya, who Prabhupada translated his book, Chaitanya Charitamrita. So these are safe personalities to hear from. And if you're not sure, we should always ask senior devotees, ask your spiritual masters, is this book good for me to read? Is it a bona fide source? We should always ask, because otherwise we can become bewildered, and you don't want to get a wrong understanding of Radha and Krishna, because that can really mess you up. And the other thing is we should also consult our gurus and mentors as to our readiness to read certain books, because you know, some pastimes are very esoteric. It may be like too much information for us at the present time. So generally the recommendation is that before getting into these other literatures written by Goswamis and previous acharyas, that we read all of Prabhupada's books first. You know, read Bhagavad Gita, Nectar Devotion, Nectar Instruction, whole Srimad Bhagavatam, whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, and you know, even all the small books if you can. Read all Prabhupada's books, because that's the foundation. Prabhupada is our founder acharya. So founder means the one who lays the foundation. And if we have a strong foundation in Srila Prabhupada's books, then anything that grows from that is going to be stable. It's going to be strongly rooted and is not going to cause a fall down. It's not going to fall. The house is not going to fall down. So yeah, be firmly rooted in Srila Prabhupada's books. And then before moving on to anything apart from Prabhupada's books, then please check with your mentors and your spiritual master about your personal readiness for those books. Ask for recommendations about which book may be a good one for you to read from someone who really knows your level of consciousness and advancement. So with that little caveat and word of advice, thank you very much for attendance, and wish you during the next few days of Julan Yatra to be absorbed in this Leela and get a little taste for the bliss of the spiritual world. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanandi.